So why aren't doctors more involved in helping people overcome their addictions? One reason is that people lie to their doctors. I mean, it's kind of crazy that these are people that just want to help get us better and really should have no incentive to judge us, yet we're afraid of being honest with them, apparently because they'll judge us. And hey, I was just as guilty. And there are some other reasons they're not as involved that I'll get to. But for now, I want to talk about that there's two main forms of medication to help people quit drinking. One is called naltrexone, which is essentially an opiate receptor blocker that is designed to block endorphins in the brain that trigger your motive system. So it means your brain won't be driven to keep grabbing drink after drink to get those non-stop dopamine hits, and that you'd be able to keep control. The other medication is called Antabuse, and the idea there is it basically makes you sick when you drink, but you've got to essentially commit to taking it in advance prior to having a craving, so that when the craving comes up, if you give into it and drink, you're going to get sick. So it's a pretty effective. But, you never really hear people talk, even in sober communities or elsewhere, about these medications, and I don't think they're prescribed all that often, though I do know a few people on them. And they say there are several reasons why doctors don't prescribe these more, other than the patients lying to them. Don't lie. And they include a lack of awareness and training among healthcare professionals. Sad but true, and that's part of my mission, is to bring more education to that community. I've heard firsthand from a doctor who actually told me she read some of Laura McCowan's books that I always espouse, We Are the Luckiest and Push Off From Here, to actually help gain more recovery about alcoholism and recovery. Other reasons they don't prescribe involve the stigma around addiction, concerns about patients' adherence, which is valid, and the perception that addiction is primarily a moral issue rather than a treatable medical condition. And reminder, this is not a moral failure. That's a big part of acceptance. This is a chronic brain disorder. So, they also say doctors prefer methods that offer a more comprehensive approach to addiction recovery. And reminder, what really you're doing in recovery, full recovery, doing the work, means strengthening your prefrontal cortex. That's where all your rational decision-making is done. And the problem is, as we abuse alcohol, that gets heavily damaged. And essentially when we get a craving, it shuts off and we're at the mercy of our midbrain. So a drug like Antabuse essentially freezes that midbrain, that survival mechanism, and allows us to resist drinking while we do the work. But that is important, that we are doing the work simultaneously. Because if we don't, it's going to be just like when they put people, drug abusers, into prison, but then don't help them do any kind of work. They typically come right back out and reoffend or reuse. They say the addict craves personal growth and spiritual development, which is all part of doing the work. So, the risk is if you're on Antabuse, it's sort of like going into detox, which is great, but if you come out of that and you come right back to a life that you want to escape from, you're more apt, without any, coping mechanisms, and typically detox isn't long enough to have developed those, you're very likely to relapse. So you've got to, people were to take Antabuse, they've got to do it hand in hand with doing the work, ideally within a sober community. So I have a friend whose fiance has been taking it, and it's working out great. I do have some concerns when he eventually goes off, as far as him not having developed any coping mechanisms, because he's not doing the work. And I think potential other reasons that these aren't prescribed more is really the timing. Most people are only going to talk to their doctors about this when they need to go to them otherwise. And then they've got to be honest with their doctor. I actually was semi-honest with my doctor when I was living in Boston for many years. He knew I had a problem. He never brought these up. And I think I would have tried them. I mean, one theory is you wouldn't want to try them. Why would you want to take something? If you weren't ready to quit drinking, why would you take something that's going to make you sick if you quit drinking? So part of this is that you do have to make that ultimate decision. Not just say you want to quit, but truly commit to the decision to quit drinking, which I just did a video on. If so, then you should be okay with taking a medication that's going to make you sick if you quit drinking. Or take one that's not going to give you, the effects, the positive dopamine hit effects from drinking. Essentially just be like drinking an NA beer. So that one in particular, is one that I really think could be effective for people, even if they don't think they're ready to give it up yet, could still take that medication, probably think they could beat it just like they think they can beat alcohol. So go out to a bar and maybe, start pounding drinks and see what happens, I guess. So the real key is that, as I said, you've got to eliminate your triggers and create a life that you don't want to escape from, no matter what you do. But if someone asked me today that was trying to quit drinking, first I say, join a sober community, do the work. But if they told me they didn't have that time right now or were going to be able to commit to that, I would absolutely recommend one of these two things. Again, there are side effects, but I don't think they're anything life-threatening. So definitely food for thought that I'm going to continue to research these issues further and try to bring more education to the medical community. So that'll do it. As always, stronger, sober, and please like, share, subscribe. Thanks.